All right, it's a Vital Mind podcast. We've got some special guests with us today.
We work here. Are we guests?
Well, you are very special, and you are also guests to this podcast.
Yeah.
My name is Ben Hofs, and I am a Canadian Certified Counsellor here at Vital Mind.
And my name is Alyssa Lightfoot, and I'm also a Canadian Certified Counsellor here at Vital Mind.
And you both started as interns, now rising to the top. It's like
climbing the corporate
yeah,
ladder.
this is going to be like The Office, where you guys start off as interns and you're going to be running the show at some point.
Oh my gosh, the dream. No, it's great. Me and Ben actually were in the same class in school and wound up getting an internship at the same spot. Brand new office. Were we your first two, or us two and Hannah were your first staff, right?
Yes. yeah. There were no secret staff
Yeah.
prior to you
Yeah.
entering the building.
The secret staff. It was me.
Yeah, no, it's awesome being here. I think, Alyssa and I talked often during our internship that we knew we had lucked out comparatively to some of our other classmates who were struggling in their internship, both in finding clients or more specifically clashing with their supervisor.
Yeah. We were really encouraged to do what we were passionate about and lean into what excited us rather than follow a strict, use this counseling modality, work with all of these things. It was actually what are you interested in? What are you passionate about? What do you want to do? Okay, let's figure out how we can do that. And we felt so lucky, and it's helped us lean into specializations in our practice and just utilize the passion we have in our work.
Mm-hmm.
I felt lucky too. I think just having you guys here ready to do really amazing work, feeling really motivated, and just the perspectives that you guys have brought have been really strong in your background as teachers and beyond, just in your day-to-day life experience. I think it was a really good fit for all of us. And when I think back on all the time that we did supervision, because we did 2 hours of supervision a week, and I think I spent more time talking to the two of you than probably most of my friends and family. So we got to know each other pretty well over the course of that. And I think we're still doing supervision together and we're still learning together, but it's been a really awesome experience with both of you. So it's cool to have you both on our first kind of live discussion type podcast rather than the kind of didactic or informative podcast type. It's good just to chat, and sometimes when we've talked in the past I've been it would have been cool to record this conversation because I think maybe people would get something out of it, or for me to even just listen to it in the future. It'd be kind of cool to reflect on some of the stuff we've talked about.
But now it's time to really tell Eric what we really feel.
Yeah, this is actually an intervention.
We've been waiting.
What's the intervention?
So this is Eric's flaws. No,
Man, let's hear him. Let's hear him.
Oh, that's...
Well, I've talked about this, that it can be intimidating sometimes with Eric because I feel like the anxious one in the office, or the one who's maybe a little bit more flawed than the rest of us. And so I remember times in supervision struggling because Eric was Zen master in the room, cross-legged, hovering above the ground.
Oh boy.
Or certainly that's how I saw him, right? And maybe that's not how he felt, but and so then sometimes finding it difficult to feel so lost sometimes, both whether in my personal life or in my counseling life.
Yeah.
So that was the struggle. But as I've got to know him, and I've followed him home, I've gone through his trash. He is just as flawed and broken as the rest of us.
I also love how you're talking about me like I'm not here.
No, what's so interesting though is I remember in so many of those times where you would speak up about how you felt flawed or broken, and you just said, right, I'm behind everyone. We would all kind of open up about how we all feel the same way, and I think that's something that I don't know, maybe the general person out there might think like therapists and psychologists have it all together. They probably just feel so emotionally healthy all the time.
Little do you know.
Yeah, we're actually just people
Yeah.
who are, feeling the same way. And it's funny because we even can think that with each other sometimes. And then it was so empowering. Some of like the best things I got out of our supervision meetings was being like, oh yeah, we're all humans. Or like Eric, when you would be like, whatever you're going to do in the room starts out in your life with you. Like what you do for you will translate to what you can do for your clients. And one of those things is just being open and honest about when we feel behind and speaking up and saying, hey, I'm feeling really anxious. I feel like you have it all together and I don't. And then to learn we're all actually in it together.
It's kind of like group therapy for us, like every week.
Yeah.
Well, and I wonder, we've probably all heard clients say it can be intimidating working with a therapist because they feel their therapist is really got their poop in a group. And then I'm like, oh, no, try being a therapist, working with other therapists. That can be, really intimidating. And I also felt that a little bit in school too. You're in class and you're wanting to like present well, not like, both presenting at the front of class, but even with your questions or your thoughts or your statements, that you have all these other soon-to-be therapists, and you want them to think that you're smart and brilliant and wise and stuff. And so it's hard. I think that maybe just chases us our whole lives.
And I think it's a trap you can fall into easily in any domain in your life where you feel like you have to prove something. And I think it's actually almost the opposite. You when you're vulnerable and you get to be like, well, I'm just as messed up, or not just as messed up, but I'm struggling with this in the past, or I've had to work through this, or I am working through this. I think it actually just humanizes you as a person. And I think there's a lot of value and power in that for clients or friends or people who you connect with, to hear like you're dealing with this as well, and you don't have everything together and you don't know everything. I think that's actually a better source of information than somebody who's this like perfect guru, perhaps.
Right. Okay, I have a question based on that.
Yeah, okay.
Have you ever in session said something and then after session you're like, oh shit, now I have to do that?
Like for myself.
Yeah, exactly. Where you've like given this like pretty balanced advice or wisdom or a perspective or a question. And then afterwards, you're like, am I doing that?
I would say that sometimes I say something and I'm like, oh, that's a good affirmation for me. Like I always try to give people things that I have done myself or I'm doing myself. But there are times where I say something like, I should do that more too.
Yeah. What about you, Alyssa?
Yeah, definitely. I think especially like working with a lot of autistic people and then being autistic myself, there's times where I'll suggest like a sensory strategy or some way to kind of reduce sensory input, a way to transition, for example, especially transitions. And I'll be like, And then I try it for myself and then I'm like, why was I not doing that? Or a nervous system reset. The amount of times I tell people like and suggest like, hey, if you put like cold water on your
or
head
sour candy or something.
Yeah, and then I just didn't do it myself. And then a couple weeks ago, I had like a panic attack on a ski hill, and my friend put ice, like snow, right on the back of my neck, and I was like, whoa, that actually works. I've only been suggesting that to people for like 6 months.
At least you confirmed it.
Yeah.
I guess that's true.
The scientific method at play there. Yeah, there's times I've been working with couples and I'll say something and I'll like get out of the session and I'll call my wife and she'll be like, you just got out of a couple session, didn't you? I was like, yeah, I should say sorry about something.
Some beautiful insight came from the nether.
I'm like, you should really seek to understand your partner's position. And I'm like, afterwards, I'm like, no, I should probably do that too. So, yeah, it's good. It's good, but it's hard. You're the one who pointed out to, I think us, Eric, that like we're always working.
Always working. Yeah, as in you're not off the clock.
You're not off the clock in the sense of to be the best therapist I can and to not be a hypocrite to my clients, I have to be doing the work.
Yes.
And that means like moving through the world, through my family, through my relationships, through even on the road. So this is ironic. Someone cut me off on the way here, and I was about to like just lay on the horn and give the finger. And then I was like, I had two thoughts of just like, okay, whoa, like, you don't have to jump to that. And then two, like, what if that's a client? But I'm like, that's like the work extends outside our office. Like we have to do the growth that we encourage our clients to do.
Sure. Just choosing how to respond in situations and like managing your own nervous system and like everything you would say, like if you were on the other end of the couch saying like, hey, I think this would be a good thing to do.
Right.
Yeah, it's hard and it is work. And I think it's like a lifestyle, actually.
It is totally. Managing our nervous system is vital.
For your mind.
But as therapists, we work to take in like people's stories and their emotions, and we have to be able to regulate ourselves to have space for that. And I think that a huge part of that comes to what we do outside of the room. What do we do after a day where we had a couple heavier sessions? Do we just go home and jump right into the next thing, or are we giving ourselves space to decompress, to process, to release what we need to? It's like we have to be able to create not just a physical space, but an emotional space for people. And creating that emotional space takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of self-awareness, and it takes a lot of being honest with yourself about your limits so that you can give truly from a place of like having the space, not from a place of burnout.
And I think people can tell. I think people can tell to some degree if you are not lining up with the message that you are delivering. And so no shade against cardiologists, but like if you have a cardiologist and they're giving you advice and you know that they're not following that advice.
Right. You see them with
it's
a
apparent.
Big Mac and a cigarette outside.
Yeah, if they're smoking like a chimney outside and you're like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Something doesn't line up. It's not like the message is different. It's not like it's any less meaningful. It's just the alignment with like the practitioner who provided it to you is a little different. And I think that the potency of it from the source is diminished.
Yes.
I would say.
Totally. Like when me and Ben were in our master's program, one of the things that stuck with me a lot is like the ultimate therapeutic tool is you. And it's you being congruent. And that clients and people can sense incongruence when you're like, inner values are not aligned with your actions. And they can sense when your values are aligned with your actions. And being a congruent person who can build a strong relationship with someone, like there's so many great therapeutic modalities out there, but ultimately the tool is you and what you're able to bring to the space and offer to the other person. And I think that's why, if you see your, nurse leaving your room to go outside to like smoke a bunch of cigarettes, it feels a bit more, uncertain and maybe not sure. And it's also why people who historically, like psychologists, where we were kind of told have a cold face, don't show your personality, like that really didn't do a lot for people, because authenticity is such an important component of it, and congruence.
Well, I think that I'm always trying to understand the client's experience, like the world that they're moving through, how they feel about it, what's going on inside them, and the best way to do it is to do the work you would tell them yourself, right? And so I'm always, maybe challenging clients to live that better life, to reach a little higher, to strive for more. And the question is, am I doing that? And so this evening I am going, I don't even know what to call it, a hangout with a new friend. Yeah, nice. So this was, I've been meeting a group of guys, and I asked one of them to do a one-on-one hangout, which is like really, it feels like first date energy.
That's the sense I'm getting.
Yeah, like it totally is. I'm like,
it totally is.
I'm like, do you want to go here? Is that okay? And I'm like, wow, this is like, I remember this feeling. And yeah, I'm like scared.
Yeah.
Like I am a 42-year-old therapist, but I am scared to meet. What if they don't like me?
Mm-hmm.
What if our conversation doesn't go well? What if I think it goes well and then they don't call after, kind of
I
idea.
get dumped.
Right? And because the idea is like adults making friends is hard. I have lots of clients who struggle to have friends as adults. And so I think going through the process myself and putting myself out there, it's like, I get it.
Yeah.
When they come in, they're like, well, I want to reach out to this person, but I'm scared what they'll think. I'll be like, yeah, no, I get that. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's important. It's important, and I'll say, what's good for the goose is good for the gander on one side. And then on the other end, it's also like we're also human. And so am I never going to lay on the horn ever in traffic?
Probably not.
Even though I might, push people to regulate their emotions and like do the work.
Rise above.
And I can do the work, but at the end of the day, we're all still fallible people too. And I think that, I said earlier, that's kind of our strength is maybe the archetype is like the wounded healer, or like we're just people at the bottom of it. And maybe that's a good thing. It's like we have the experience of being human, so we can connect with you as a fellow human and understand something, even though we may not have gone through the exact circumstance.
Yeah, and that's all part of the picture as well, because to push your limits and to go further starts with meeting yourself where you're at. If you aren't meeting yourself honestly where you're at, then you can't get any further. If you're trying to start from 5 steps, 10 steps ahead, and a lot of times, like, that is also what we're doing with our clients, learning to meet yourself where you're at, encouraging them to meet themselves where they're at. And that's doing that for ourselves too. Like, if that day I laid on the horn and gave someone the finger, maybe I can just have some compassion for myself, meet myself where I'm at, and understand that, like, I'm a human being. Like, sometimes that's all it is.
It's a good perspective.
And that's a wrap.
Mic drop. I won't actually do that though.
Don't
I would probably make it look like on the mic.
So Eric, here's a question for you.
Yeah.
You have been with us for, how would be a year and a half? Almost a year and a half?
Yeah.
Yeah, like in a month.
Year and a half.
A month,
That's
year and a
so
half.
cool.
Okay. How have each one of us grown as therapists?
For both of you, I'm going to start with both of you. For both of you, the confidence is so much higher overall. And I know there's still times where you're like, ooh, I don't know about this, or you have questions. And I think that's good. Ultimately, like, you shouldn't be overconfident. But I remember the two of you coming into the office and having this sense of like, I think I'm going to be good at this, and I invested all this time and money into education. So there's this like pressure that you're holding, but you're kind of like shaky on it, like, whoa, I hope this works out. And I think within a relatively short time, within like 2 weeks, I would say, I could see both of you like, oh yeah, I can do this. Like, I have a lot to learn. I'm still figuring out my style or how to do this, but the sense of like, this is aligned with something that is valuable to me and valuable to other people, and that I could facilitate that connection is so much stronger. I think also just the ways of conceptualizing psychology, and with the trainings that we've been doing, like new concepts and integrating them into personal life, into the clinical work together, is also massively improved over time. I see that you guys are like refining your style, I would say. Like you come in with like, I think this is how I could do therapy. And then as we're adding kind of like pieces to it, like you're building, it's creating a scaffolding out of that, of which you're like, oh, this is actually more my style because I have more tools to work with. So I see that with the two of you. And then I think individually you're understanding your specific niches more, like the types of clients that you want to work with. So for you, Ben, it's like couples, and specifically neurodivergent couples, or partnership where at least one person has neurodivergence, and how that affects communication and all that kind of thing. And I think for you, Alyssa, it's like ADHD, neurodivergence as well, but more on a individual level where people are coming to better understand themselves, maybe reduce the stigma around symptoms that they're experiencing and kind of getting a lot of guidance in that way. And I think over time, the two of you are really dialing into like, how can I be the most effective for
Mm.
people? For people who come in, how do I be the most effective for them? And I think that is getting refined over time.
I like that. Would you agree?
Yeah, I do feel that, especially when you talked about refining our style. I could feel that happening, and it's interesting because when you said that, I'm like, I'm not intentionally thinking about doing that. It's just kind of happening. Um, like I'm thinking about my style, but I was never like, wow, and I'm gonna focus on refining my style. It just kind of happened, which I think is really cool. I think that's going back to what we said earlier. Like that's a natural ripple effect of being encouraged to follow what we're passionate about and hone in on what we're passionate about rather than, be a generalist and do it all. We get to really like become unique and honor our authentic self.
Yeah, and that piece, the authentic self, I think is the one of the most important elements of the whole thing,
Mm-hmm.
because what I've wanted to facilitate for both of you throughout this process is for you to just be more you, if that makes sense. Like you come in like, I don't know how to do this, and really like you're discovering how do I be the most me in this room working with somebody, and that's the part that really shines through and people are going to connect with.
That's good. I mean, it's a challenge for sure.
For
Because
sure.
I just think like, isn't that funny? Like, I don't know if there's a lot of other jobs where they're like, you need to be leaning into your you-ness,
Mm-hmm.
like be more authentic. Like, and I mean, obviously, I think many jobs would benefit if people were doing that. But I think you're right to say it is a central component of what we do.
Yeah.
It is the principle we hang our hat on, is to try and just be me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and the sad part is, I think institutions tend to stamp that out. Like you
Mm.
go to school and it's like, this is how we learn, stop talking, pay attention, you can do that at recess. And so they're stifling this component of like, what makes you you? And I get there's a element of importance to that because there is stuff that you have to learn. So you can't just do whatever you want in an environment like that. But I think it's setting people up to kind of stifle this part of themselves so that they can be, in quotes, productive,
Mm.
whatever that means in commerce, in a job in the future. What I tend to notice with people who work jobs, let's say an office job or a corporate job, or even up north in oil sands, is like you have to become more like something else in order to both fit in and then continue doing that job. And your workplace will actively punish you for being more you if it does not align with how they want you to be.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, 100%. Something I do with clients, especially people who are recently diagnosed with ADHD or autism, is we redefine words. And productivity is one of the main words I will redefine with people because the societal definition of being productive is ultimately something that removes our authenticity. And when we are able to be more authentic, we feel better and subsequently can actually do a better job once we're living more authentically. So it's kind of a reverse or ironic kind of situation where the attempts to be productive and the way it's defined are actually making us less productive in the long term. Even if in the short term it looks more productive, you could get 10 things done in a day, but what is the cost over the next month to go that hard? And then over the next month, are you able to be productive, quote unquote? But especially for people with ADHD who have heard these lifelong kind of statements towards them of if you just worked harder, you have so
Mm.
much potential. There's if you just weren't as lazy. But ultimately, what is being productive? Maybe being productive is giving myself this space and cutting my to-do list in half for the day so that I have more to give to myself, to give to my family, and then I feel better and then I keep filling myself back up to give more and more, as opposed to just running yourself into the ground.
Productive is so relative
Mhm.
too. I think like you can very narrowly define what productive means, especially in a workplace.
Yes.
And there's an inherent cost often to productivity for the sake of productivity rather than it being something meaningful, for example.
Hmm.
Meaningful for the worker especially, because I think it's got to be aligned in that way. Otherwise, you're really entering into an environment where you have to subvert some part of you. That's, I think, very important for at least 8 hours a day for most people, 5 days a week. And that takes up a lot of time. And then you have to recover from that by trying to become more you in these hours outside of those productive hours and try to do all the stuff you need to do in home too
Hmm.
on top of that. So people have very little time, I think, to actually connect with like creating more of this connection with themselves, unfortunately.
Well, it makes me think of something very simple, like you could go into a hardware store and you could ask a worker there some questions, and they could spend half an hour with you answering all your questions. And then your boss might be upset because you weren't helping other customers. And it's like, well, there are three people there who are defining what productive is. There's the customer, there's the worker, and then there's the boss. But in a workplace, I think we all go, well, the boss gets to decide, right? And it's like, yet that customer may now come back. So doesn't the customer decide? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
you're right to say it's very relative of who gets to decide what mattered, what was meaningful.
Mm-hmm.
And sadly, in that example I gave, it's probably the worker who gets the least say in
Yeah.
what felt productive to them.
Yeah.
Yeah, the boss is like, well, it's my voice, and then it's the customer's voice, and well, I guess it's your voice, but that's last.
Yeah, and so I think if everybody is doing their work, I think it's a net positive for everybody involved. Like, let's take your example. If like the worker is able to express himself in the most his version of him, if that's a good way of being, then the customer would benefit from that. And I think overall the boss benefits from that, even if there's no immediate return on investment.
Hmm.
But the boss would want the worker to be in the best state of mind in order for the well-being of the business long term.
Right, right. Like having a strong, capable, loyal worker would be better than, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
a person who wants to work, who wants to come to their job,
yeah,
that
yeah,
would be the most productive.
yeah. And I when I hear stories from people about their workplaces, it just seems totally opposite of that.
Yeah.
It's like do the work, and that's the most important thing.
Right.
And whatever cost it is to you, I don't care, or it's not as important as the work.
Right. Right. You're replaceable. The work isn't.
And I just think that's it's such a awful way for people to interact with their workplaces or their
Mm.
bosses. And so I think of work as like it's a relationship.
Hmm.
And you give and receive, like you invest your time and energy and you receive money and hopefully something more than money, like meaning or some psychological value, purpose, ideally for most people. But you can be in an abusive relationship with your workplace.
Mm.
Oh, yeah, that's huge. And I think people don't, that's such a good way to put it, because I don't think people understand that that's exactly what it can be, an abusive relationship with your workplace. And when that is where you're spending 40 hours a week of your waking time, it can take such a toll on the body. And there's a lot of conversation about abusive relationships in general, but applying it to the workplace, I think, is equally as important, because you can have a wonderful, like, warm, safe home, but if you are going to that kind of environment and having those kind of interactions on the daily, it will take such a huge toll on your mental health. And it's so ironic too, because we see everywhere, like, I'm sure we've all been in a store unsure about buying something, but you have this worker come up to you and they are just passionate, they're authentic, and you want to buy the thing now because of that person, because of their authenticity. we see all over, people respond well to authenticity, yet that doesn't seem to be, that observation isn't really getting applied into these like workplace structures at times where it's really could benefit everyone, including the business.
Do you think that the world of therapy, in terms of therapists, like how does that exist there for us? Like we can picture it in other worlds of jobs, but like this is a job.
Mm-hmm.
Does the world of therapy what does it determine is productive for us?
I think it depends so much on the specific work environment, because I've been in a place where it was like a mill where productivity, whatever productivity was the main focus.
Like in terms of client hours?
Yeah, client hours, like seeing people, generating income, all of that was actually the most dominant force, is what it felt like. As well as, I think, subjugating like individualism for a collective. And so I've been in an environment like that, which was a therapeutic environment, and it didn't feel aligned with sort of my values. And so it always just felt off to me. It's like you see almost, it's like a backdrop, but behind the scenes, it doesn't line up with what you would expect. And so for being in that environment, I just knew I was never going to stay there.
Right.
And so, because it didn't feel authentic, and I think that you can create any environment, good or bad, right or wrong, for the same purpose. You can create a therapeutic environment which is aligned, or you can create one that's based on a higher value. And so I think it's really the value that they place on, based on whoever's running the show. They get to determine what that is. And so it's going to be a match for some people. Like, I'm not saying it's necessarily a bad place, the place I was at.
Some people might be like, you tell me what to do, tell me what success looks like, I'll follow your rules, I'll follow your systems.
Yeah, or
I'll
just
stay in my
just
lane.
I don't care about that stuff. I'll come here and do really good therapeutic work no matter what.
Right.
And so, cool, that's great. If it works for you, that's great. It didn't work for me for that one, so I couldn't stay. But I'm not here to judge and say like that's bad across the board, because I think that there are people who would get something very valuable out of that place.
If they aligned with it, yeah.
Yeah, or even temporarily, like you stay for a while and you learn a lot, and then you move on to something else, like I did.
Mm-hmm. I think it's about like what is sustainable as well, and this goes back to how lucky we are to have landed here right from the start of our internships. Because going back, we had a class of 18 in our master's program, and of course we all kind of discussed how our internships were going once we were in them. And you did have the place where it was, you have to work this many hours. Some of my friends were seeing 9 clients a day. And if you think about that, 9 clients, potentially, what if they're all heavy sessions? We're just human.
How good is the therapy on the 9th client?
Yeah, it seems unethical. Yeah.
Yes, I agree. And there were places where it was about the money. There were people who had really heavy things happen in their life around the time internship started, and were told that they just had to leave it at the door in a therapeutic environment. That's the opposite of what we would tell a client. So why are staff being told that? And then how does that ripple out to clients eventually? There is a lot of business kind of productive, make the money orientation in therapy offices, in some of them at least. And I think it's easy for people to maybe go there because, with the fact that our healthcare is the way it is, like as a therapist, there is a possibility, I guess, to make like a decent amount of money if that's your goal. But some people hone in on that as the goal. And for me, it almost feels just completely counterintuitive to what therapy is. And when I say that, I mean making money by grinding and seeing a bunch of clients every day and making sure your schedule's always full and never taking time off.
If it's the main goal.
Yes.
Compromising your wellness in the pursuit of it. And
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it should be a ripple effect of good work rather than the central goal.
Well, you're right. It is a business, and I think that people can favor the business element of it over time. And I get it, because it's not easy to run a business at the same time. And so you do have to have consideration for the business. I think what I'm hearing you say is like the business part in the hierarchy is always above the people involved or the authenticity related to
Yes.
it, where it's always the most important thing.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's exactly what I'm trying to say. It's this hierarchy where the other, almost everything else is null and void. All that matters is the machine doing the thing that it's meant to do, despite how little gas it might have.
Hmm. Hmm. And so both of you are in the teaching realm prior to becoming psychologists. I'm just curious about like what's the contrast like? Because I see the
Like
two
the
professions.
school system.
Yeah, well, I would say
Uh,
like the professions of like teaching and psychology or counseling aren't so different, but they're also vastly different
Mm-hmm.
simultaneously, just in the way that you would approach them and how it plays out.
Yeah.
well, the school is built on metrics. There's undeniable about that, whether it's the amount of kids in your class, their test marks, their scores, the how many kids are being helped through the student services department every day. It's all, and then the hard part is it's all tied to funding, right? So there are people doing great work in the school system still. And it's kind of like what you said. You can be you could be placed in a system, but kind of do your own thing.
Hmm.
But it's also, you run the risk of, yeah, someone may not be happy that you're abiding by the way that they want the system to go. But then you get a different principal in, and then all of a sudden the system changes again. That's always was the weird part about schools is you'd get a new principal in, and they would be focused on something completely different, and there would be teachers who would panic about that, and staff would panic like, oh, how do we adapt and adjust to this new person's leadership and what they want with the school? And there's other staff members who are like,
Bring it on.
I'm just gonna do my own thing.
Yeah, okay.
Anyways. And so there's a lot of similarities, I think, between the two. But then even you talk about, what would success be in a school? How would you measure it? Is it the kid graduating?
Mm-hmm.
Is that success? Is it the kid feeling loved? Is that success? Is that the kid finding a passion? Is that success? Right? Like there's a million metrics you could
Yeah.
have.
The one that comes to me as you ask that is like, can you facilitate enjoyment of learning
Right.
for a student?
Like intrinsically desiring to want to know
Yeah,
more.
like to facilitate somebody being like, oh, like science is really cool, or I want to know more about this, or I love writing. I need to do more of that. And being the venue for people to connect with learning as a whole and then to find pieces of it that really strike their interest. That's just what stuck out to me. I mean, I'm sure you could measure it any number of ways, but I think that, schools can almost do the opposite, where you're done school and now you're like, well, I'm not reading anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's big. Like, it was interesting as a teacher, I really noticed my strengths and passions, and that's ultimately what led me to switch careers. I loved building relationships with the kids. I loved when I could foster their learning and foster their interests and lean into what excited them. But there's also the element of working within a system and maybe my personal metrics for my students of success, right? And it was different for each kid. Sometimes the success was just that they wanted to be in the classroom.
Well, they showed up that day.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sometimes the success was they had a positive interaction with another kid. Sometimes the success was that they did awesome on their math test. But it was different, and it depended on getting to know each kid for who they were and then trying to work with that. But then when you're in a system, there's constraints. How much could I get to know each kid when I had 26 6-year-olds in my class, and 7 of them had higher support needs than the rest, and 2 of them had extremely high support needs? There's so much that I wasn't able to do that I loved to do because of the constraints of the system I had to work within, which is ultimately what led me to shift into a career where I could lean into those strengths and those things I was passionate about in a new system that would hopefully actually have the space for me to really do that. But yeah, it is challenging to work within a system and to see all the parts, because I also, I understand what my principal's saying to me when I'm being asked to focus more on these kids and less on these ones, even though the ones that I was focusing more on had higher needs, because we have to be there for all of them. But it was just hard when I was just one person and working in a broken system. But there is a lot of similarities, even in leadership, like you were saying, with principals. Like a new principal comes in and some people respond well to change, some don't. It definitely gives a lot of insight into the human condition working in a school, because you work with every type of parent, every type of kid, and every type of boss and coworker, and you can kind of get a more empathetic perspective for everybody's subjective reality.
If you're an empathetic person.
That's true.
Something I was thinking about too that is maybe actually similar between our two worlds of the education and therapy is that it's like, oh I had 4 kids fail this class, or those 4 kids didn't graduate. Okay. Did I fail? Was that on me? Right? How much responsibility do I have? How much responsibility does the young person have that they didn't graduate? Right? That they dropped out early or whatever.
Right.
And it's the same in therapy. I think sometimes it can be like very easy to be like, oh, this client's not doing well. That's on me. I must be failing as a therapist. Or you can go the opposite direction and be like, well, this is all on the client. It's like they're clearly the problem. They're just not ready to change. They're not ready to do the work. And it's like, what is the appropriate amount of responsibility both parties need to hold? And how do you determine that? Because it's the same thing, right? You have this person trying to help and this person needing help. And then when it goes well or doesn't go well, who holds what?
I suppose a classroom setting's a little bit different in that you're managing just so many people at the same time. And so you can really only attend to them with a fraction of the amount of time that somebody sitting in your office for an hour at a time gets.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think like you're trying to divert your attention across all these people. There's people with behavioral issues that you're attending to. There's people who are probably gifted, who are like ahead of the class, that are bored. Like you have such a range in one classroom, I imagine, that your ability to do everything to everyone for everyone is just not possible.
Mm-hmm. I actually like that. That's really cool to kind of think about if I were to place all my clients in a classroom and think about what their roles in the class would be. I'm like, wow, that actually gives good perspective.
Who would you have been in a grade 9 class or whatever, right?
Yeah, totally. Are you the one who's high achieving and wants to do all their homework and is on it and wants the next thing?
Are you the
right
class
away?
clown? Are you the one who's checked
Right,
out?
right.
Are you the combative student? Yeah.
Well, and it's interesting actually, because as a teacher, when I think about that, it's easy to see that really like high achieving, wanting to do all the work student and be like, perfect, easy. But there's often stuff underneath that.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
That we see that now in therapy. Like we have high achieving clients.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean that everything's roses for them.
Well,
right.
Yeah, like sometimes maybe it's about paying attention, because it can be this high achieving quote unquote people who want to do the work, want the next thing. They're implementing all of the tools you give them between sessions. Sometimes it can be just like a teacher, quick and easy. I would turn away from those kids because I'd be like, perfect, there's others who need me more. And not that I do that with clients, but it's more like, great, and you're on it. But maybe that high achieving productive drive is part of
The issue.
Yeah, like the thing that's
Right.
they're
I only
struggling
have
with.
value in love if I impress and achieve.
Yes, and impress my therapist especially, because
Right.
like who better to impress and prove that I'm doing all of the things, I'm so emotionally healthy. And it can be, I think it's actually something, as we're talking about it, I'm like, I need to watch out for that more, because in the same way, when I was a teacher, those kids did fall through the cracks sometimes emotionally and behaviorally, and maybe they didn't have as many friends, and I just didn't see it because they were doing all of the things that needed to get done for school and meeting all of the metrics.
Right. Checking all the boxes.
Yeah, but it's easy to kind of let that fall through the cracks when that's the way it's going. So I guess as we're saying this, I'm thinking about some of my clients and even myself as a client to my therapist and thinking,
Are you trying to impress your therapist?
am I trying to impress my therapist? And as therapists, I think it's important for us to look for that and try to catch it, because will it really help someone if we just ride that with them and let the whole thing
Oh,
play
you're
out
doing
again?
so great. Everything's awesome.
Yeah,
Right.
great work, affirmed.
So assume the worst is what you're saying.
Yeah, pretty much. That's exactly it.
Trust no one.
Trust no one.
What were you guys like as students? Like in like
grade
school? Like, yeah, I don't know, like choose grade 6. What were you like as a grade 6 student?
Oh man, so undiagnosed ADHD. I look back at my report cards and they're like, so much potential, needs to pay attention. It's funny it got missed, but I mean, I was trying to impress my teachers. That's why I slipped through the cracks, right? Like they liked me and thought I was this great working kid. I always wanted to help. I was the teacher's pet. I'll help with this, I'll help with that. But was my work getting done? Not so much. Was I paying attention to actual content? Not so much. But I was always paying attention when the teacher was looking to affirm a kid. I wanted to be the line leader. I took my role as a grade 6 reader buddy to my kindergarten buddy very seriously.
Still on your resume. That's one of your career highlights.
That's a valuable life experience.
Totally. But I think that the way I presented, so eager, masked a lot of the ways that I actually struggled to meet the metrics. And yeah, it was often when my teachers were doing the report cards or looking at the content of like my work that they realized.
The student's struggling more than we realize.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it usually wasn't until after like marks were already in.
Right. A little too late.
Yeah.
But here you are.
I mean,
You're a master's graduate now.
Yeah. We made it.
What about you, Eric? What kind of student were you like in grade 6?
Grade 6 was an interesting year for me because at that time, I was undiagnosed autistic, so I was very quiet. And we had this hybrid class where it was actually 2 classrooms put together. And so sometimes it was separated by a partition where the other class would be in one classroom and we would have our own stuff. But sometimes we would all meet together. And so it was like
50 of you?
Yeah, like 50 people.
Oh my gosh.
So I tended towards the very quiet side of the spectrum. And I think in grade 6, I was looking around, observing the dynamics of what was going on in this classroom of like tons of people. And I was like, there's a benefit of being able to speak more or to articulate your needs or to ask questions or to interact more.
Or else you'd be lost. Or overlooked.
You could be, yeah. You could be lost. You could be overlooked. You could also just not have the best experience you possibly could in a classroom. Like you might be denying yourself the opportunity for friendship or connection or something. And so it was near like the 3/4 mark of grade 6 because we had the same class for grade 5 and 6. So I knew all these kids for like almost 2 years. And it was like at this like 75% mark of the like second year where I was like, it's time to talk more.
Whoa.
And it was like a big shift where people are like, dude, this guy never said anything and now he won't shut the hell up. But I was putting a lot of conscious effort into like really like shifting that part of my personality and just seeing what would happen. And so.
And did that maintain then the rest of school?
It oscillated.
The other grades?
There's times, yeah. It was weird because I guess these are the 2 parts of my personality, the one who's like quiet and observant, and then the other part that's like expressive and wants to like be assertive and talk and explore. And so I kind of saw myself go in and out of those 2 different personas almost in different grades. So like some grade would, the louder persona would come out more and I would be like the class clown. Like I would talk back to the teacher and people would be like laughing. And then other grades, I wouldn't say much at all. Yeah. And so it was almost like a total contrast.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that it was just like this conscious decision. that
Yeah.
you were like, okay, I guess I better start talking.
Yeah, I remember there's this one specific time because we had this joke calendar that if you like press a button, like water sprays out of this like hidden compartment and like hits you in the face.
Oh my god.
And so this thing was just like kicking around. And in front of everybody in grade 6, I grabbed this thing and I said, "Hey, Mrs. McClellan," that's her name. I'll never forget this teacher. She's one of the best teachers I ever had. I was like, "Hey," and she was like, "Oh, hey, what's going on?" And I held the thing up in her face and I pressed the button and sprayed her. And it was the most like
People were like, what is
Yeah.
this kid doing?
it's like not even something that I would do. It's not something that anybody would do in the
Right.
class. And so, like my bravery ran away, it was like diminished immediately. So I was like, oh shit. And then I like ran back to my seat. But it was just one of those like, it's like that persona. Like if you think of Fight Club, you've got this like hidden persona. Like
Yes.
Tyler Durden showed up to class. And like made me do that.
Little anarchy.
And then he was gone and I was like, oh, but she wasn't mad or anything.
Right.
She was like, whoa, like that was so cool almost. Like that was her reaction.
It makes you wonder if she hadn't responded that way.
Yeah.
If she had come down with like anger or shame or hostility,
Yeah.
if that would have been the end of Eric exploring that I could step outside the very quiet kid zone.
At least for that moment, maybe, for sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
At least at that time.
Wow.
Were
That's
you like
awesome.
in grade 6?
Oh, this.
The same as you are now.
Yeah, no, I was like, yeah, I was a talker. I was making jokes. I was, yeah, like just being me. Yeah, like I remember basically every report card until my grade 12 report card. Every single report card. Ben talks too much in class. Ben talks too much in class. And then in grade 12 it didn't. And my parents and I decided the teachers had just realized it wasn't going to change. There's no point even putting it on the report card anymore. And yeah, I was very people oriented. Yeah, very people oriented. And yeah, and that never changed.
When did you know you wanted to be a teacher? When did you decide?
Well, so yeah, to be clear, I worked in a school, but I worked in student services.
Okay.
Like a school counselor, right?
Yeah, like a school counselor.
Okay.
I mean, I didn't go right to university when I graduated. All my friends did. And I didn't know this is going to track with me. I was so anxious I would make the wrong decision.
That does track.
That I would go pick a program, any program, right? And that I would, what if like you do 3 years of it and you spend all that money and you realize you're hating it, like, and so I didn't go back to university till I was like 23, 24. And I was like, I want to do youth work. I think I'm good at working with young people. I mean, I was a young person at that point, but just like, that seems to be when I come alive the most.
Yeah.
I remember my dad telling me, I was like 18, and he's like, Ben, you should get into plastics. And I'm like,
Plastics.
plastics. I'm like, what does that mean? And he's like, I don't know. It's just like, there's a lot of money in that world. You should like
plastic.
Yeah, like work in a factory that made plastic or something. And I just remember feeling like, oh, I don't think you know who I am.
Yeah.
Right. And now we can joke about it. And he's like, I probably said it because you didn't know what you wanted to do. And I knew to just say a trade.
Yeah.
But then the funny thing about working in the school system and then doing stuff like school counseling or running programs and being a part of that whole world is I was always around peripherally therapists in and out of the schools or referring kids or the school psychologist or whatever. And it was like, I could never be one of them. Like, I just knew. Like, they're too, they're like too professional. They're too like elite. Like, it was like, I'm not an elite
Too
person.
suit and tie, like
yeah,
buttoned
and
up.
it's not in like even like, oh, I don't want to be that. It was like, no, like they wouldn't even let me in their club.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't belong.
I'm too much of a schmuck to ever be a therapist. Like, who would ever take me seriously in that world?
That was the perception. Is it was a very
Yeah.
serious thing. It had to be.
Yeah, and
like,
you had to be like put together and speak well and professionally. I remember we'd do these big round tables. And there would be a couple therapists, there'd be like a police officer there, there'd be like a principal. We'd be talking through like the really high risk kids of the school. And and even we'd have children's services there and like social workers and stuff. And everybody's like giving their thoughts. And I always felt like, I don't belong at this table. Like, I can't say anything. I've got nothing to offer here.
Right.
And so I always started every sentence at that table, at all those meetings, with some version of, take this with a grain of salt. I'm just saying, I don't even know if this is right.
Qualifying.
This is a stab in the dark. I could be way off. And every time they were like, that's awesome. We should do that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like there was a little tiny voice in me that was like, no, I know this is the right call. But like, it was just so little.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then when I woke up, my therapist, my own personal therapist, had been encouraging me to be a therapist for like a year. And I'm like, no, I could never be one of you. And then I woke up one day and I was like, I don't want to work in the schools anymore. I want to do something different.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I'm going to let that little voice get the microphone for a minute. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to try this. And here I am. Doing a Vital Mind podcast.
Yeah.
As a therapist. So.
And the vibe of this podcast is, I think, the vibe of like what we are, which is not buttoned down. It's not that we're not professional, but like we're
I wear buttons sometimes.
Oh yeah, well that's good. I'm glad you do, but not all the way to the top.
No.
Yeah. We're like some of the buttons down. No.
Right, and it's like, I hear laughter from your office so often that it's like, maybe we get to redefine the perception of what you or other people out there think therapy is.
Yes. And maybe when you were like, no, I could never, it was partly because of your perception of what therapy was. Maybe a perception that lots of people have, right?
Yeah, I probably had a very narrow view. Like, it was very smart people wearing suits and ties, sitting in a room, being able to like regurgitate deep textbook learning to help people, right?
Yeah.
Like employing. I remember I had this practicum student with me who wanted to be this youth worker, and we were in doing a program at the school, and some kid had just lost. I think it was either a parent or grandparent. They had died. And I was talking to this kid, and the kid leaves, and this practicum student who was very academic, she was like, and I don't even remember what she said, but she's like, how'd you know to use the Heidelman method? And I was like, I don't know what that is. Yes. I was like, I was just going with whatever my gut felt right in that moment.
Yeah.
And so I think like it would be a moment like that. I'm like, I can never be. I don't know what those words mean. Heidelman method. I mean, I don't remember what it was.
Yeah.
I'm not smart enough to do that kind of stuff.
But the interesting thing is, like, without knowing what the definitions were or the textbook stuff, you just intrinsically had this sense of like, I think I know what's right. And every time you brought that to the table, it would be like, oh, that checks out.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And so then it's like the most exciting thing about maybe being here at an internship, and then to take this all full circle, is Eric saying to us, like, the best thing you can bring into the room is your intuition. And it was like, oh shit, that's amazing, because I actually think I can do that.
Yes.
Like, I think I have an intuition I can bring in. I'm going to struggle if you're going to be like, I need you to memorize this method and these steps, and you must follow that. That's what's going to lead to success with the client. Where you were like, no, like, bring your gut into the room.
Yeah.
I mean, my sense of education is it's not invaluable, like it's helpful, but really it just provides blocks that you have to configure into your own personal configuration. Like it's your stuff, and you can't just follow like do this, do this, do this. People will get better. Maybe that's quite a risk, but we're dealing with human beings, which are infinitely complex, and so there's no set route for anything to do with people or behavior, and so it has to be something that's more like connective. And I think the intuition is the thing that connects you with another person.
100%. Like I completely agree, because everyone is so unique. Every individual that sits in front of us is unique. They might have similarities to other people, but they are their own unique person, and therefore one strict modality followed step by step might not work for them. Everything has to be tailored. And I think that for me, kind of the way I envision it is my intuition, like when you said that, it's like my intuition always needs to lead. And maybe I picture this bookshelf behind me, right? This library of information and tools and interventions, but it is my intuition that will choose to take something off the shelf when the time is right, or to not, rather than the other way around. Like, yeah, intuition always leading the way, and leading what gets pulled off that bookshelf and used if it feels right for that person in that moment.
I love that. And I think when we talk about intuition, it's like knowing without knowing why, perhaps. I don't know why this metaphor came to me. I don't know why
But I trust it.
But you trust it, and I think if you allow that to flow, it seems to work pretty well. Or if it doesn't, you go, oh, okay, maybe I was off. But like, was there a part of that connected at all? Or, and it usually has something.
Yeah.
Totally. I would say pretty consistently, when I know that feeling of just knowing, when I bring that forward in the room, it's responded to with, yes, that's what I needed. That's what clicks. But it can be hard to tune into your intuition. For me, at least, I found it hard when I'm trying too hard to be a academic therapist.
To do the Heidelman method?
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much.
I can never remember step 3 of the Heidelman method.
I have to Google this after. That's real.
Yeah. Can you imagine if that's like a real thing?
Yeah, we're like, no idea what we're talking about.
No. Well, and it makes me think, like, how do we put on our website, like qualifications, like Ben, here's this thing that he works on, like level 7 intuition, because that's almost the thing you would want to know. Does your therapist, do they believe in following what comes to them? Right? Because I as a therapist now, I realize how important it is.
Right.
But it's like there's not really a spot on the qualifications page for that. So
I think that's what this is. This is the time where people can hear you articulate ideas, and they go, oh, I think I understand a little bit about how Ben's brain works. And I think, maybe the way that he thinks about things or his way of being might align a lot with me. And so I think it's so nuanced that you can't really capture it on a scale or in a profile. And I think that's probably one of the big reasons why I wanted to do a podcast is there's something that gets revealed when you talk to people for a long period of time. You can't hide behind.
Yes, it's not just a soundbite. I can sound good in a minute clip.
You can curate anything for a minute, but can you do it for 2 hours?
Right.
Probably not.
Right.
Yeah, that's really cool. That is a really unique way as well for people to kind of get to know us, but also just understand, what therapy can be by listening to a podcast like this. Because I was similar to you, Ben. Like, I didn't think I was smart enough to do a master's. I didn't think I was academic enough to be a therapist and to have a master's degree. And I think once I did it, I understand maybe I'm not, I'm not the picture of the clinical psychologist I had in my brain that I didn't think I could be. But it's just because that's not genuinely who I am. But that's also not what I need to be. Like, I really do repeat to myself a lot that the clients that I am able to support well will come to me, and it's not going to be everyone. I'm not going to be able to support everybody well, because some people might need someone different, but there are people who I'll be a really good support for, and I trust they'll find me. And when they do, I hope that I can utilize that intuition and that authenticity and show them maybe a new way that therapy can be. Because I think a lot of people also don't come to therapy when they think they have this image, right? Where it's this deficit lens, this super hyperclinical academic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's always got to be a really good match between the therapist and the client, as we know, but I don't know if that's always the information that gets out to people who are looking for a therapist. And so that's why we do like little free consults so that you can catch people's vibe. I think anybody listening to this podcast episode will have a much better sense of who we are as people.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're not the right fit, fire us. But do it gently. Yeah. But like, ask for a different therapist or help finding a different therapist.
Absolutely.
I know that's a really scary thing to say as a client, but I think the three of us believe so much in good therapy. We would rather you found a different therapist that was the right fit than to continue with us when it wasn't the right fit.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It is the most important thing in terms of like that therapeutic relationship that you have with your counselor is the most important factor for whatever outcome that you're trying to achieve through the counseling process.
Well, and statistically that is true. More than modalities and techniques, like
or even experience.
Right.
And that's the crazy one for me when I was starting out is like the outcomes for like a new therapist and somebody who's been practicing for a long time aren't drastically different.
Right. So having years of experience doesn't necessarily mean success. Having that connection with your therapist does.
Yeah. Authentic connections.
Gives vital minds.
Great slogan.
Little plug there. Little plug.
So maybe you guys can talk about like the types of clients that you would want to see the most, like the ones that you really like do the best work with, just so people know like how if they wanted to contact you, what kind of people are you really seeing?
Got you. Okay, I think I see. Alyssa's just running away. She's like, I don't want to see anybody. Yeah, people who are stuck, and I wish I had a clinical word for it, and I've tried using Google and ChatGPT and it's like there isn't a clinical word for that really, but people who are feeling stuck, who've taken stock of their life, taken a look in the mirror and realize that they're wanting more, whatever that more is, or they're wanting different, that they believe they're not maybe really living life to where they want to be living it. And that could be, you could be stuck for a million reasons. You could be stuck because of a job, grief, a relationship, behaviors, the addiction. It doesn't really matter. We can get stuck for a whole host of reasons.
Yeah.
But I really like the idea of working with clients and helping them find a way forward to a place they want to go. That just charges my battery. I also really love working with couples. Couples work, just like someone once wise told me, is very different than individual work, and I like the challenge of it. I think it is challenging because relationships are challenging. Just factually true. If you're in a relationship, it's probably not easy. Well, couples therapy as a therapist isn't easy, but I like trying to rise to that challenge. I love seeing clients in a relationship find each other again. That's a really beautiful thing to be a part of. I also love working with couples where there is a neurodiverse partner present, whether they have ADHD, autism, or both. That can make navigating an intimate relationship really difficult sometimes. And that needs a specialized approach. I know that personally in my own life, and I've seen it with clients, that I can't approach that couple as if they're neurotypical because some of my strategies are going to fall flat. A really, really easy one might be if I was with two neurotypical clients, if they were on the couch and we had this really special moment, I'd say, okay, I want you to look into each other's eyes and share, this sentence. Well, eye contact can be really hard for autistic people.
Yeah.
So just that alone, right there, boom, I may be asking a client to do something that they don't actually feel comfortable with. And it maybe changes the vibe of the room. And so knowing neurodiversity present means I can speak differently and help these clients understand that the things that are showing up in the relationship, it might not be broken. It may just be they don't have a full understanding of the brains that are in those relationships.
Yeah.
So it'll be some of the clients that I love to work with.
I love that.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I would say that at the core of the clients I love to work with most is the pursuit of authenticity and the pursuit of authentic living. And I find that I really love working with teenagers for that reason. I love working with young adults who are maybe just out of high school or going through university or kind of just starting off. And the biggest one I love working with is neurodiversity, and especially people recently diagnosed, maybe diagnosed later in life. From my personal experience being diagnosed with ADHD at 27 and then autism at 30, it really gave me language to learn how to live more authentically. And I think that's something that I really care to work with people. Getting a diagnosis, at the point that you get it, it's just a word and it's a name, and it's something that you get to choose to understand, or you can choose to leave it there and not understand it deeper. But by understanding that neurotype deeper, you start to understand your neurotype deeper. You start to learn what you need. You start to learn what hasn't been working for you that maybe you didn't even see because you've masked it so hard. You start to understand what could work with you, and ultimately it leads toward more authentic living, authentic with your personality, learning what are your core values, how can you align your actions with them? What do authentic relationships look like now that you know this about yourself? Maybe it is more authentic to not have to look in someone's eyes all the time, and maybe that can be okay.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's more authentic to connect with friends over shared special interests, over a game, over an activity, and not just go for coffee and chat. Maybe that's more authentic to you. And just moving with people through this process of really deconstructing a lot of shoulds, ways they should be, ways they think they should act, what they should do for a career, what work should look like, and reconstructing their own definition around their wants, their values, their desires, and their needs that their brain and their nervous system have. I think that process can be really huge in the ripple effects of like pursuing authenticity. Can be decreased anxiety, decreased depression, increased physical health is huge. I know for myself, before I was diagnosed with autism, I thought I had some like immune disorder. I was sick all the time. I got sick so easily. And there's a lot of research to back this up as well, that high masking, even if we don't know that we're masking, and masking basically just means like working against your brain's natural way of working. You know, you're going into these situations every day and forcing your system to do what's not natural for it. And a little bit of a push into discomfort is healthy for people, but when you are pushing into significant discomfort all day, every day, the toll that takes on your nervous system is one where you do get sick quicker. Your body doesn't have as much that it needs to fight illness. So yeah, I think I really love to work with people around that pursuit of authenticity, because it's something that in my personal life has really changed my health and wellness for the better. And it's really like special to be a part of that process with people. And ultimately, like as a therapist, I really believe that the person in front of me is the expert on themselves. They know themselves best. They have the answers in them already, but the guidance and support needed to dig those answers up and get down to that understanding, maybe it just hasn't been there, because there's a lot of messages out there, like we talked about earlier, right? What productivity means, what it means to work 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, that we often feel like a failure if we don't live up to them. And I think authentically living is really centered around your own definitions and values and understandings of what it means for you. And then, like we talked about earlier, authentic people have ripple effects. People respond well to authenticity kind of across the board. So yeah, I would say that's kind of my ideal client, is just anybody who's pursuing authenticity, or even if they don't know that they're there yet, just someone who feels like things aren't aligned in their life. They don't feel themselves. They don't know who they are even. I think that's kind of my favorite kind of client to work with.
Amazing. For me, I would say I really like working with complex trauma, people who have gone through just awful situations, and there's an element of the past that still emerges even though it's been decades since the trauma and they're in a much better place. There's still a residual effect that takes them back, affects their behavior, affects their processing, their nervous system, and just being able to help people release that trauma from their bodies. And so I use a technique called AIT, or Advanced Integrative Therapy, and the somatic elements of the work are really the most exciting for me right now. And so getting people to release trauma from their bodies, doing meditations with people where they can regulate their nervous system, maybe for the first time in years, and getting people to feel like they have some control over what happens in their bodies, I think is one of my favorites for people. And so we can do this work at a very, I think, a deep level where you can feel different in your body, and that affects how you think, how you sleep, your relationships. And so, I get a lot of guys who also don't have a deep connection with their emotional content. They just do what the things I have to do, and I don't have time for sadness or mourning, loss, or most emotions. And it's hard for them to identify emotions, maybe other than like, this annoys me, or I feel frustrated. And getting them to increase their palette of feeling, I think, is also another type of client that I really like to work with, where they don't even know, like, I don't know how I'm feeling. And then as we start to explore this and we get them connecting more with their body, they're like, oh yeah, there's some stuff there that like I haven't thought about in years, or I never felt like that about this. And that's a cool shift to see. I also like working with couples as well. And I think what you said, Ben, just about like how, like the feeling of watching two people like work through their own stuff to like reconnect and develop like this like relationship that they've had in the past, or some semblance of that, like a deep connection that they've been wanting, and there's been something in the way is also really, really fulfilling to see when we can facilitate that connection again. So anything that involves people like kind of shifting into something that they're afraid of, like something they fear doing, like a transition that they know they need to make, or letting go of something, that's also something I really, really like. It's like kind of creating a pathway or encouragement towards doing something that feels very difficult for people.
Well, and I would even go as far to say, for probably all of us, if you are a potential client out there and you feel like, I like how that person thinks and presents and talks and shares, we probably can work with you, in the sense of because of that therapeutic connection. So always reach out.
There is a sense of, I think you need to only reach out when you're feeling at your lowest, or like it's a crisis, or
when the house is burning down.
Yeah, something really awful is happening. And I think about the idea of, like, we're kind of like coaches. We're not life coaches, we're psychologists, but we are kind of like coaches in a way. And I think people operating at the highest level of whatever they're doing all tend to have coaches. Like, I think LeBron James has got to have at least 2 or 3 coaches, at least. And this guy's one of the best basketball players out there, and he's still doing coaching. And like, if you were like, I'm going to go to the Olympics, I'm like, oh, cool. What kind of coaching do you have? And you're like, I think I'll be okay.
I'll wait till I'm really not doing well. And then,
yeah,
and then you can help
I'll
me.
wait till I don't podium, and then I'll hire a coach. It's like, no, I think it's a vehicle for you to achieve the highest level of performance or, let's say, well-being or whatever your goal is that's possible. And it
Mhm.
can be preventative, it can be a thing that you do that just helps guide you, and it doesn't have to wait till the worst moments. And
Yeah.
so I think there's this perception of like, I'm not that bad.
Right. Or I go to therapy when there's no other option left. And it's like, it's okay to come to therapy before that.
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
fact, it's encouraged.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And you don't have to do it forever. I think you can come in and check us out, and you can talk and you can explore.
Mhm.
And sometimes people come in for 2 sessions,
Yep.
right? And they get what they need and they don't come back for quite some time, and that's cool. It's like wherever you're at, I think it doesn't hinder the direction that you want to go into.
Mhm. Yeah, 100%. That's a really good point. It is. You can come to therapy anytime, and you might actually get a lot of value not coming when you're at rock bottom. Maybe you're coming to therapy because you moved to a new place, especially being in Cochrane. Lots of people are moving into Cochrane from other places, right? They're starting new. They're in this position where they have to maybe make new friends, and that's challenging as an adult, but community is so important, or in this position where they're going to start a new job, or just kind of going through these huge transitions. That can be a great time to start seeing somebody and talking and making sure you kind of can set up this life that feels really good for you and can sustain you for many years to come.
So think about, this podcast is a venue to just talk about whatever. Like there's really almost no topic that could be off the table. And the therapeutic environment is also a place where you can come and talk about whatever you
Mhm.
want to.
Mhm.
And there's very few places that I think you're allowed to do that these days.
Yeah, like no holds bars, whatever you want to talk about,
Yeah.
we'll meet you there.
Yeah.
You're right. Like, where else could you do that?
It's really hard. Even with like family, people will say like, I actually needed somebody who is not my family because I needed to actually hear the pure, like unfiltered
Right.
response to what I'm going through rather than like, oh, it's okay, you're good, like don't worry about it. I actually needed some like truth
Mm.
to the matter, and that was more valuable than somebody being like, oh, you're good,
Mm-hmm.
don't worry about it. And I just wonder if there's so few places that you can just show up and you can be like, this is the thing I want to talk about, or I have like deep shame about this, or I've never told anybody this before, and we're like, cool,
Yeah.
let's go there.
Yeah. Bring it here. We can create that space. Yay.
Okay.
Great.
You wrap it up.
Love it.
Yeah. Smash that subscribe.
Smash that like and
What is
subscribe.
it? Yeah.
Hit like and subscribe.
Make sure
Comment down below.
hit that little bell or
Share
whatever
with your
the
friends.
notification, right?
Yeah.
Book a free 15-minute consult. Or come to one of our nature walks. We're gonna be doing some free nature walks or maybe not free. We're gonna be doing some nature walks in
Low
and around
cost.
Cochrane.
Low cost.
Low cost.
Yeah, the next one is on May 21st at 6:30 if you're in the Cochrane or Calgary area. We're doing it at the Cochrane Ranch, and we did this a number of times in the past,
We love it.
and it's fun. I think
Mhm.
something that is really cool about what we do here is actually, I think we can transcend the walls of the office and actually get people into spaces of nature where they can do a different form of healing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
So join us for some nature therapy.
yeah, so we're going to do a bunch of those coming up. Just check our website out, vitalmindpsychology.com.
That's vitalmindpsychology.com.
Did you hear that? That's Vital Mind Psychology.
I don't know if you guys remember, they
.com.
used to have to say websites, they'd be like HTTPS.
//
Yeah. That's
www.
/ or whatever.
Right. Yeah, it's so complicated.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yay.
And
Thanks for checking in, guys.
Thank you.
wrap.
I love it. Guys, we're really good.